fairways and greens, can make a ton of pars when the conditions get tough, and just kind of grind it out. That's what Kuchar does. And you got to figure he's only got so many realistic shots at majors left in his career. I think he's 41 years old. And this is a course, as far as majors go, that sets up probably better than any for Mr. Kuchar. So I like Kuchar a lot.
Fan. You know, I've been a big fan all year. I like my douchebag squad. But
Evil Cooch, man. He's just, ever since that Caddygate thing came out, how he was cheap ass and didn't pay his caddy in Mexico like he should have. He's been playing off the charts. So
yeah, he has.
It's hard to ignore him as much as you might think.
It hasn't changed my mind. So the guys just below that, I've heard almost nothing on Paul Casey, and I've heard a lot of fade on Gary Woodland, and I've heard basically 50-50 on Matt Wallace. I got about 4 sources I go to every week. 2 said they love Wallace. 2 said absolute fade Wallace.
Yeah, I'm in the second boat there. I don't think he's quite ready to contend in a major of this magnitude. I think he's shown some flashes here and there, and he's a great player. I mean, I like him overall. I think
his ownership is going to go high too, because he's being talked about everywhere, whether it's good or bad. He's being talked about. They have him projected at 10.1 on Fantasy Alarm.
I'm with the fade on Woodland. I just think coming off his major, he had one start since then at the Rocket Mortgage and ejected pretty hard. I just don't see him having the kind of game where he has the patience to do it for 4 days here. Faden Wallace as well. Casey is he's a guy that you could get on if you want somebody low owned as kind of a mid-tier guy.
That's true, but I mean, what we talked about leading into this was we liked guys in good form and good history, and he doesn't have that right now. His history here is just awful.
It is. I mean, I'm looking at the last 5 years. He's only got one top 20, finished 11th a couple years ago. Other than that, he's been pretty much outside the top 50 with a couple missed cuts sprinkled in there. So
talk to me about one thing that I kept getting brought up this week, and it seemed an outlier to me. The guy who designed this course, there seems to be a lot of attention on players who have performed well on this guy's course designs. Is that something you know anything about? I already blanked on his name because I didn't take proper scribble notes.
Yeah, no, I've definitely heard some talk about that, about how there's a correlation between other courses he's designed. I believe the Scottish Open a couple weeks ago was also designed by him, or maybe it was last week. I don't remember. But yeah, I generally like when there isn't a whole lot of course history on a particular course. I generally like going to that part of research where you look at how guys perform on courses designed by the same guy. I don't know. I'm going to have to still see some form, even for guys that have performed well on his courses in the past. But every course designers have their own signature, their own little idiosyncrasies about the course that make their designs unique.
And so I don't have any insight into that. Have you looked at that for this one? I wish I would have taken more notes. I was in the car all day, very difficult. That's why it's chicken scratch. So it was hard to write the notes, but they mentioned quite a few players, and I'm for the life of me can't remember. But I remember that being brought up on multiple different sources that I check, that they seem to be very focused in on this guy's courses. Apparently he was a consultant on the Canadian Open too.
Yep. There's a guy that I know both you and Emmerich like this week that I know has a good history on his courses just from listening to a couple of the same pods you probably have this week.
Mr. Fancy Pants?
Mr. Fancy Pants. He has played well on the Mr. Anonymous Designer that we can't think of his name's courses in the past. Fancy Pants has done pretty well. We'll get to him in the 7K range.
Ian Poulter, of course, which we're talking about.
Yeah.
We'll get to him. Yeah, he's a lock. He's in probably 40% of my 19 lineups. I'm not going to lie.
I don't blame you. It's a good play. To round out the 8K range, though, a guy that I think is going to go extremely overlooked this week, who tends to perform well in majors. He's got kind of a mixed history, including a win in Open Championships in the past.
Louis.
But I think Louis got to be looked at this week.
Projected at 6.9% ownership.
Oh, man, that is a nice number, too. I'm going to have to go heavy on Louis this week. I just think he's got the ability to kind of break his run of second-place finishes in majors. Not that he's done it consecutively, but he's finished second in every major. at one point or another, including the British back in 15. So I think Louis is an overlooked play this week. If he's going to be sub 10% in tourneys, I'm playing him. I think he's a nice price saver there, which gives you a ton of upside. And there's a few guys in the 7K that we'll pair him with, but I love Louis this week. Give me the overlooked Oosthuizen.
Mr. Louis. I like him. I always like him just because I like to sing Louis Louis while I'm in the shower. So it makes me think of him. It's
interesting.
True story. Well,
do that in the morning and he'll probably be on the course while you're doing so.
Right. And how about another hometown favorite at 7,900, Mr. Graham McDowell?
Yeah. He's shown some form here the last year or so. He's got a good links record. Coastal courses are kind of his cup of tea. I don't hate it, man. I was hoping that it would be a little bit more of a difficult scoring conditions this week, some tough weather, which would have, I think, shot him up even higher on what you expect out of him. But yeah, I can't hate on Graham. I mean, he's playing his first British in a few years, and it's in his backyard of where he grew up.
The Scotsmen, man, I mean, they just all tend to usually come up and play at this match, you know.
Well, he's a Northern Irish man, but still.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Apologize.
No, he and Rory are the hometown favorites this week.
For sure.
Those will be the guys that the locals are rooting for. But
he's a little high owned than I'd want to see him. I mean, obviously, because he's a local guy. He's at 12%, 11.8. But
yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, I'm going to be going elsewhere myself. I can't hate on the pick. I think he's got the pedigree. He's got the ability to grind it out for 4 rounds, but I'm just going to some different guys in the 7K range.
I like him a little bit. He's in a couple of my lineups because I don't feel like he's a guy that has any shot of missing the cut. I just feel like he's going to put a 25, top 20 to 25 range game in.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. I do think he's got a decent floor, and I'm just not sure his upside is right where I want to see.
Yeah, he's not on any of my lists of guys I think could win it. But definitely a guy that's going to make the cut and score you some points if his price range fits in. But with a guy like Louis, $100 more, and a guy I like a lot in Leishman, $200 less, it's going to be probably difficult to fit him in.
Yeah, I think I'm just not making enough lineups this week. If I was making 20 lineups and putting them into a 20 max, I'd probably throw a couple Graham lineups in there to be about even on the field, but with ownership. But I'm going to a few guys below that, and I don't mind Leash at all. He's got a good British Open record, 3 top 6s in his last 5. I mean, it's hard to ignore. He's a great win player. Loves coastal courses. He's an Aussie. Strikes the ball extremely solidly. I'm starting to realize I probably didn't have as much of him as I need in my initial builds. So thanks for talking me into that.
Yeah, man, I like him. I'm not really interested in the guys above him much. Graham a little bit, obviously. Shane Lowry doesn't move the needle. I hate Garcia at this tournament. Tony Finau's burned me too many times. He's dead to me.
I mean, Sergio could be in an all douchebag team for you.
Yeah, but he just sucks. When he plays these courses, he just sucks. He's a trash human being.
Yeah, I mean, that's somebody's father you're talking about. You can take it a little bit easy on him, but right. I don't disagree.
Fair enough. Let's get to Mr. Fancy Pants. He's next on the list, right? Tied there with 77 with Mark Leishman. Ian Poulter, Mr. Fancy Pants. He is my mid-range lock. I love him.
Ooh, we're using the lock word on Fancy Pants.
Dude, I love him. I love him.
He fits the description, right? I mean, he's been out there for years and years. He's over 40 now. He's a grinder. He's got a good short game. He can putt the lights out. I can't talk you away from him. He's also got good form coming in. Finished, I think, 41st a couple of weeks ago.
And 14th he's also being projected at 2.9% ownership.
Seriously?
2.9.
How is that possible? I'm gonna have to have a little slice of Poltz then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, him and Kevin Kisner both 2.9.
Yeah, he feels like a guy who's got a good shot this week. As much as I'm not a huge fan of Poltz, he's a good play this week.
He's got some anger issues, and I appreciate that. And but I think that he's another one of those guys that time's running out on him, man. And that's kind of my theme this week, man. Is like these guys that time is running out. They got to put it together.
Yeah, you got to do it now, or the time's going to pass you by.
Yeah, man. How good these young guns we were talking about last week have been doing. I mean, the time is now, or you're just going to be passed by.
I can't disagree, man. He's in that same boat as Kuchar. You know, how many shots are they going to have where they have legitimate chances to contend? And this is the kind of course he can do that on. So I'm kind of with you, man. The guy just below him, I don't think he's quite in that same category, but Webb Simpson is also getting up there a little bit. He's in his upper 30s, and it's been now, I think, over a decade since he won his U.S. Open. So,
well, you heard Chris and I. We both are on Webb. That's dangerous. It's not good when Chris and I agree.
I know that's kind of part of what's putting me off of him. I didn't have any of them to start the week, but the more we talk about it, the more I'm kind of leaning towards a little bit of Webb. There's just so much talent, so many good guys in the 7K range, which we'll get to in a moment. But yeah, Webb's a really solid play too. He had his best ever British Open finish last year, finishing 12th, and the form's been there. He's had a solid year. He feels like one of the guys that's due to break through, and maybe he doesn't quite get it done in a regular event, but he gets it done here. I wouldn't be shocked at all.
I like him. And then how about the guy right there with him that got a little love on the show that you and I both listened to, Mr. Eddie Pepperell?
Yeah. I mean, that guy's got the game to do it. What's his ownership looking like here?
I'm looking for him right now. I just was looking, and one of my favorite guys is at a 0.5% ownership, but we'll get to that. I do like how the ownership down here seems like it's going to be very spread out because there are a lot of good. Pricing's usually pretty soft for majors. Peps is at 4.8.
All right. Yep. Sign me up for some Peps. Well, let's do it.
How about Lefty, man? I hate him. Do you hate him? I hate him.
I hate him. With a passion.
This isn't his style of course.
No, it's really not. I mean, Pepperell doesn't come in.
He's got the putting, he's got the short game, but I don't know that he's got the length left in his drive accurate enough to compete.
Oh, the accuracy's not going to be there. I think he's going to be playing out of the gorse pushes and the rough, the fescue all week. I just don't.
He's shockingly driving longer than he has been, but it's not been as accurate.
No, I think there was a stat a few tournaments ago. He was like number one in driving distance, but like near the back of the pack in strokes gained off the tee. Like,
yeah, not good.
You can hit it long, but if you're blowing it into the trees every hole, or in this case,
that sounds like when Tiger first started having the problems with his back. When he was out there just stretching to crush these 350-yard bombs, but he had like a 10% accuracy rating, and we all knew something was way wrong.
Yeah, Phil's in that boat now. He's just too old, man. He can't get it done for that long.
It's just very difficult to be consistent when your entire swing comes from the power of your calves.
A little swing analysis here by Danger. I did not expect that whatsoever.
True story. So here is the highest owned guy outside of. Let me find him here. It was a shock to see him up so high. So so he's the highest owned guy below 8,500, and that is RCB. What's up with that? Why is that 7,500, but yet projected ownerships this dude is looking at 15.3%?
It's form and name. I mean, he's a name you've been hearing about for a few years. This up and comer. He's finished top 10 his last 3 events. 3rd, 4th, and 9th in the last 3 in succession. So I get it. I mean, his form's really good. I just, at that ownership, I'm going to take a few other guys in that same area and get off of RCB. He's showing some good form, but the British Open's just a different animal altogether. I just think he's gonna be a good fade this week, and he's gonna burn a lot of people.
All right.
Keep an eye on the Twitter. There will be some cursing of RCB come like Friday.
Sure. Yeah. All right. So I don't really care for Willett or Hatton or Westwood or Snedeker's all right. So a shocker here. I believe we listened to the same show. Did it surprise you that both of those dudes were going to put an outright bet on Patrick Reed?
No, not at the number. I mean, he's 90-1. That's something that interests me a little bit too. I mean, the guy's got a pretty low ball flight, keeps it under the wind.